Okay, Hilchos Gerim, Siman Reish Samech Tet. Isur Arayot Begerim, V'din L'nyan Edut V'chalitza. Okay, so when they convert. When we finish the Seifim, then I'm going to go over some interesting topics about Hilchos Gerus, questionable Gerus, L'chadchila, B'diavad, and little nuances, which will shed some light on what we said or learned previously. Aleph, Din Torah, Shemotar Lager Shisa Imo O Achoto Me'imo Shnit Kairu. Okay, so really, according to the Torah, whenever a ger converts, right, a non-Jew converts to Judaism, the halacha is the ger Shnit Kayer Kekatan Shenola Dami. He becomes like a brand new person. I'm not going to get into other details. There is a little bit of what to learn in general about gerim when they convert afterwards. I'll just put it out there. Like, once they convert, how far do you take this principle? There's a few other examples, but I don't think we're going to get into it. He becomes like a new person. But when he becomes like a new person, then how far do you take it? Let's say you want to say a bracha on a place that you had a nace done for you. But that was in your previous lifetime, like a day before, right? Before you converted. And now you're a new person. So there's different on all these various issues. There's different opinions. So there's how far can you take it? There's an Indian that when a person converts, so then also he gets a fresh new slate from his averos, so now he can start again. But do you start right away? You're mature, or do you have to wait 20 years? Because there's an Indian for a child, because the child's immature. Depends how far you want to take it. I'm just saying, do you have to wait 20 years to be a ger when you're mature enough to be a chai of punishments? I think most of us would agree that's a little too far. But there is real question marks. An interesting one is Tevilas Kalim. Does you have to do Tevilas Kalim on his Kalim again? So that's a machlokat achronim, believe it or not. I think the majority would say yes without a bracha. But some would say they don't need to, or it depends if it's glass, plastic versus metal. But anyways, let's move on to the Shulchan Aruch itself, because the question is, right, Tevilas Kalim, it might only be when you physically buy it from a non-Jew. That's when Chazal or the Torah was gozer. Again, the whole question was deraisa derabbanan, which might also make a difference why sometimes you're suffix derabbanan or deraisa lachomra lakula. So the question is it only if you take it from a non-Jew, or in this case he never took it from a non-Jew? He himself is the person. So the question is, were they gozer in such a case if it's a Mr. derabbanan? Anyway, so let's go. Let's read inside. Our topic of the Shulchan Aruch is marriage. So since they're like a newborn, we say all of they're no longer related to all of their krovim. All of the relatives are no longer halachically their relatives at all. They're allowed to marry whoever they want. There's no illicit relationships with relatives by a goy. However, we're going to see. Aval, Chachamim asru davar zeh, but Chachamim made a gezerah, right, or a takan, right, midarabanan, kedei shelo yomru banu mikedusha chamura lekedusha kala, so that people don't say, oh, I went from a holy religion of Christianity or whatever it is, Buddhism, whatever it is, and now I became Jewish, and it's not so chamura. I'm allowed to marry my sister or my mother. So it sounds terrible. So therefore, we don't want people to say that or for it to look like that. So therefore, they made it exer. But we'll see. We don't take it all the way. It's not. It's not exactly the same. They weren't gozer exactly like Jews behave, because we want to just be on the same level as the goyim. We want to be at least just as strict as the non-religious holidays rules of relatives in marriage. V'chein, ger shabal imo o achoto v'hi bigoyeta harehi keval al hanochrit. So therefore, if a man converts to Judaism and he has his non-Jewish family, so if he has relations with them, it's like he's with a non-Jew, and it's not like he doesn't have the same punishment as being with one's mother or sister or whatever the case is. because really they're not related. Halachically. And we're going to see we're more strict with the relative of a mother, because the halacha, it's a machlokas in Rishonim, but the halacha follows that through a mother in the non-Jewish religion, we assume that they're related through a mother, but they're not really related. They don't have the same isurim to a father. So therefore, Chazal only made these gzeras, we're going to see, when it's through the mother's side, not when it's through the father's side. Okay, so let's see. Inside. Bet. Ketzad. Din gerim. Araya. She'er basar. Aim. If it's through the mother. No. She'er basar. Im haya nasui. Keshuhu goy le'imo. If he was married to his mother when he was a non-Jew. Oh, le'achoto mi'imo, or his sister. There was the mother's side. Venit gayeru, and now they convert. So midarabanan mafrishim otam, we separate them. Ve'im haya nasi l'sha'ar arayos venit gayerbo, but other ve'ishto so ein mafrishin oto. But if it's other arayos, and then and they convert it together, then we don't separate them. The whole thing is, as the Shach points out, the whole thing is only an Isser Mishum Gezerah, and we're not too strict. We're only a little bit strict. How far do we take the Gezerah? And he says the only thing that they have to do is wait 3 months, which we're going to see again, because you want to make sure if the child comes. It takes 3 months to see on the woman if she's pregnant or not, to make sure if the child is Jewish or not Jewish, or if it came from before or after. Okay. Let's go to Gimel. Goy. Asar b'she'er ha'im. Achar shenit gayer midivrei sa. Okay. Goy asar b'she'er ha'im. So then if it's through the mother, this a goy is asar, through the mother. Achar shenit gayer midivrei sofrim. Even after he converts, it's midivrei sofrim asar. A mutter b'she'er ha'im, but it's a mutter if they're related through the father. It's alpha pisha yodea. So it makes a difference if they're originally married or not originally married. Alpha pisha yodea b'vadai shezeh she'ero me'aviv. There's no question. This is your I guess half brother or half father, whatever it is, through the father's side, half brother. You go into umim, like twins. Shedavar barurhu, she'aviv shelzeh hu aviv shelzeh. They have the same father. Afal pichein, if they don't have the same mother, lo gazru al she'er aviv. They didn't go there on this. Lefichach, nosei ager eshet achiv me'aviv. You're allowed, a brother and a sister can get married if it's only half brother and sister through the father's side after they convert. Ve'eshet achi aviv. And so too the uncle, the sister-in-law, the Eshet Achi Aviv, the aunt with the nephew. The Eshet Aviv, the Eshet Beno, or through the wife of his father. The father's fathers who had a mother, and then or a daughter-in-law, or or it was the father's wife, and then I guess they got divorced, or whatever it is. Alpha P Sheniset le'echav. In other words, all these things, whatever the case is, through the father. Alpha P Sheniset le'echav olachiachav aviv olivno achar shenit gayeru. After they convert, right? Because you have to marry someone Jewish, so everyone converted now. Then it's mutter. V'chein achot. 1 second. V'chein achot imo miavia.
His mother's sister, but she's only a sister from the same father.
His mother and the aunt are half sisters through the father.
Then he's allowed to marry his aunt.
And then he's allowed to marry his aunt, even though it's his mother's.
Even though it's his mother's sister.
Even though it's his mother's sister, even that's okay. V'achoto mi'aviv, his sister. Right, and your direct sister, which we already said this case, direct sister through the father, half sister. Yeah, we said that. Exactly. We had this previous case. Ubito shenitgayeru, and also the daughter. When nitgayeru, everyone converted. muteret lo, own daughter. He can marry his own daughter after they convert because you look at her also, and it's her father. Anytime it's through the father, it's okay. Right, they all converted. V'yesh osrin v'eshet avi. Yeah, but the goyim don't look at it. It's because the goyim themselves don't mind if it's through the father. At least that's the goyim that we're dealing with, according to the Rishonim. So anyway, so let's go on. However, the Haggadah just says, you know what? V'yesh osrim v'eshet aviv. Everything's aser. That everything that we just said was mutter is really aser. There's no difference between father and mother. And so says the Shach, says one should be a machmer. Aval, eino nose lo achoto me'imo, v'lo achot imo me'ima, v'lo eshet achiv me'imo shenasa echav me'imo, achar shenit gayer. So once they shenasa achiv me'imo, achar shenit gayer, after they get the right, everyone has to be misgayer. So they should not marry them. Aval im nasa echav keshuhu goy. Now, anytime it's through the mother, we said it's aser. But if they were actually married already, before they converted, keshuhu goy, while they were married, hareze muteret lo. So then, on this, there's a kula, even through the mother side. Okay, so we'll come back to this after, fine. The Lavush and the Gra, they argue on this last piece of the Shulchan Aruch as well, that they have to separate. Okay, the rest will be a little bit more straightforward. Dalet. Shnei achim te'umim. You have two twin brothers. Shahaita, harasan shelo biktusha, v'leidasan biktusha. So when she converted while she was pregnant, that's what it is. They were goyim when she conceived. She converted. The couple converted, and now they get married, and then she gives birth. Okay, so chayavim mishum. Now, even if they don't actually get married, the same halacha applies. But let's keep reading. Yoreh means leitazan biktusha means she's Jewish. She converted. I just added the part about kiddushin. Sorry, chayavim mishum eshet ach. So now, when these twins are brothers, that they're not allowed to get married to each other or to each other's wives, exactly. So then, or if it's a brother and sister twins, they can't marry each other. Whatever the case is, they can't get married. Aval, lo. So for purposes of arayos, they are 100% brothers because they were born as Jewish brothers. And they don't need gerus. There's nothing, they don't need to do anything. They're 100% Jewish. Aval, lo choltzin v'lo miyamnin. But they can't do chalitza and yibum for this type of a relationship. Why? Because in order to do yibum and chalitza, you have to be a brother through the father. And since she was conceived with this man, that's why I said they got married. But they were conceived with this man, but they conceived when they were non-Jewish. So these kids are not related to the father. Halachically. Okay, so therefore, they can't do Yibam or Chalitza. Hey, Hanose Giyoret Bita, Hagiyoret Ushteach. Okay, so a person who marries a convert and the daughter who converted, right? A mother and a daughter converted together. And a person wants to marry both of them. Ushteach, two sisters convert together. Minaim, even through the mother. Yoshev im achat mehen umegarish hashniya. So you can only be with one of them. You can't be with the second one. What does it mean umegarish? It just means if you did it be'eser, you're married to both. Kedushin is tovsin with both, even though they're both sisters. Because it's only midarabana and it's aser. So midaraisa, it's 100% tovsin. But we don't allow you to stay married to two sisters. It's Nisa Darabanan, right? If they're fully Jewish and born Jewish, it'd be Nisa Daraisa, but in our case, it's a Yoreh, so it's Darabanan. So we say you have to do a get, and it's a get Daraisa. Fine. Vav. Nasa Giyoret Umeta. One marries a Giyoret and then she dies. Mutar Lisa Ima Obita Shlagazu Ela B'Chayehen. So then, can you marry the sister or the mother after she passes away?
The sister's not Fiddish because even if they were looking.
Right. Yeah, and so I was wondering about that also.
That doesn't say it.
Oh, right. Okay, you're right. So if it was two sisters and one dies, even if it's Jewish, it's okay. Here we're talking about a daughter or a mother, when even after they die, you're not allowed to marry their mother or daughter. That's midaraisa for a Jew. But here we're talking about a Giores, and they weren't gozer on that far. As long as they're not alive together, no one's going to talk about it and say it looks bad, and it's not going to, raise any eyebrows, and it's not a problem. So they weren't gozer in such a case. Fine. The Shach just points out some are machmer for this case, and it's better to be machmer as well. Okay. Zayin. Mutar la'adam lisa shte achayot gioret min ha'av shelo gazru b'she'er ha'av. Now, if a guy wants to marry two sisters, and have two wives at the same time, if it's through they all converted, and it's through the father, they're only half sisters, not a problem. Okay. Chet. Hashaniot kulan logazru aleim begerim. Now, with all the second relative, second removed, all of those isurim that apply for a Jew, or even midaraisa, none of them apply. They weren't gozer by a giora, begeri. Lefichach mutar hager lisa imo. You can marry his grandmother, right? Wouldn't happen too often, but v'dose adam gioret, and a person can marry gioret, ve'em ima or bat bita. Right, grandmother, granddaughter, great granddaughter, whatever it is, anytime you get once removed, then they weren't gozer. Tet. Ger shenitgayer. V'ishto imo. Okay. Now what happens? This happens every so often.
Because granddaughter is not.
Granddaughter is an istidaraisa. This is the first one. So it has to be a great granddaughter to be a shnis. Okay, shkaya. Okay. Gershon is gayer v'ishto imo. You have a couple who converts together, and so tzrichim lifrosh zemizeh. So you have to separate them one from each other once they convert. Shlosha chodashim. In other words, 3 months. From the time they get converted, they live separately for 3 months. Then they get married, and then they live together. Okay. Tzrichim lifrosh zemizeh shlehavchin bein zera shenizra b'kedusha lezera shenizra shelo b'kedusha, because we want to make sure we totally understand the difference. The child, when the child is a Jewish child or a non-Jewish child, because for 3 months we might not. It's hard to tell when you look at a woman if she's pregnant or not, but by 3 months, then you know for sure. Right? It'll definitely show by 3 months. So that's why we have to separate them for 3 months. And I believe that this is common practice, halacha l'maisa. So it says in Igros Moshe, I heard Rav Avadi Yosef, Shuvas Sanhagos, they all say that we have to, nowadays we still wait 3 months. However, let me just, I'll just say that, however, the Igros Moshe has an interesting tshuva where he writes that in Bishat Hadchak, where it's impossible, too difficult for them to be apart from each other, one can be somech on prisas nida by seeing the menstrual flow. Because if a woman bleeds, he says in the olden days, like really olden days, it's possible for her to remain pregnant, even if she sees bleeding, or that's what he thinks. But he says nowadays the metziut is 100%. If a woman has a normal flow, there's no way that she's going to be pregnant. And we know this for sure. So he says, therefore, the whole point is to know the difference. And so therefore, bishat adchak, one has to be a real bishat adchak, so then one can rely on it. He doesn't talk about other testing that's done, but in general, I believe that is what's done. But I don't know, I didn't do a survey about the dinim, and but there are times where you do special tests by the doctor, whatever, and you might have to wait a month. I don't know, whatever it is. As long as you know 100%, maybe they can be together right away once you know for sure.
They have to live in the same apartment.
Once they have to get married first, no, and then they can live. Yeah. Well, that's the whole question.
Separated, like live in different apartments, or are they allowed to just?
Well, so what we said, normally they have to live separately for 3 months. You get married, and then you live together. That's common halacha. If there's a bishat adchak situation where they can't, there's kids, there's all kinds of personal issues, and
There's a wedding and everyone has, if they weren't, they're not married once they've met God.
Right. They're not married. They're not married with their guy, so you have to do a new wedding, and then they move in. First wedding for them, right? As a Jew. Haga v'im eino rotze l'kaima eina tzricha get ela yotze imenu b'lo get. And then the Rama just points out the obvious. If they were married as non-Jews and they convert, when they convert, if they don't want to stay together anymore, I don't know, something a fallout after the conversion, they don't need a get anymore. Or whatever, they're in good relations, but they want to go their own separate ways, and they both want to convert. Whatever the case is, you don't need a get because they're not Jewish. They're not halachically married, and there's no reason for a get. Okay, good. Le'inyan edut afilu achi min ha'em me'idim zelazeh the ger shenitgayer kekatan shenola dami. And then when it comes to edus, they they're allowed to testify for each other against each other. They can be two edim, right, or put together for against each other, whatever it is. Right, because they're 100% separate. They're not related. However, Yud Aleph, the inyan din ger kasher ladun dine mamanos v'hu shetiye a ger kasher he can do dine mamanos, but that's only v'hu shetehei imo mi Yisrael. Wait, how is that possible? Aval im ein imo mi Yisrael pasul ladun et Yisrael. So it's a din daraisa that child of a ger, but a ger it is it's we're going to get there in Choshen Mishpat. There is an isser for them to force themselves on a beis din, or for a beis din against the person's will to judge against. A ger can't be a dayan against a Jew. That's in Hilchos Edus. If he wants him to, he's allowed to, but you can't if they don't want you to. B'kfiyah. אבל אם אין אימו מישראל, פסול לדון את ישראל, אבל לחברו ger done. But he could be a dayan for a ger, just not for a Jew. Lechalitza pasul, afilu lechalitza gerim. To do chalitza with gerim, that doesn't work. Ad shehei aviv ve'imo miyisrael. quick clarification. Reish Samach Tet Yud Aleph. How do you have a ger that his mother is Jewish? So we're talking about the son of a ger. The father, and it can go either way, and then he's allowed to judge on a Yisrael. If or the father or the mother, if either one of them were a born original Jew, and only one of them is a convert, then that's fine. Also, the end of Gimel, when it says, Im nasa achiv keshuhu goy, so the case is you're talking about two brothers, two Gentile brothers, and one of them was married. And then when the three of them convert at the same time, for example, then the brother who wasn't married is allowed to marry his brother's wife, because the brother's wife was his wife as a Gentile. Now that they're all converted, it's a fresh start. No one's related. And the brother is allowed to marry what used to be his brother's wife. But they were never married when they were Jewish. So therefore, she's free to either brother when they convert together.